for my movie, I decided to watch The Public Enemy. So The Public Enemy was released in 1931 by Warner Brothers, and it was based off the novel Beer and Blood. So contrary to modern day cinema, they showed a list of all the characters that were going to be in the movie and then who they were acted by. And then they also showed a disclaimer stating that they weren't glorifying the hoodlum lifestyle, but rather representing parts of America at the time. They likely had to put this into the video and the movie because it was a controversial topic. So then the movie starts off in 1909 in Chicago with a bird's eye view showing up the city, and then the main character Tommy is introduced, and he is being mischievous in drinking alcohol, which I think it also shows how accessible it was at the time. And then after this, and then a close-up shot of his dad eavesdropping into the conversation of where he tripped his best friend's Matt's sister, and it's just him being disappointed, and then he ends up getting beaten. And then it's Matt and Tom are being shown after this scene showing stuff to Putty Nose, which is a character, not a great character. He buys things from the kids and then sells them for higher prices and takes advantage of them. So then also another really cool thing that I noticed in the movie is that they broke it down into years. So the first one was 1909, and then it flashes to 1915. It talks about them doing something big in the first scene, and then it's shown that they are getting guns, and it kind of represents them being brought into the actual crime life compared to when they were kids just selling things. Then it cuts to a scene of them breaking into a building and trying to get animal skins, and then it backfires on them, and then Limpy Larry gets shot and dies. And then the next scene is in 1917, and it shows the year, and in the beginning it states that the US declared war, and then Matt and Tom talk to a new character named Patty to talk about selling cigars, and then Patty convinces them that organized crime is a easy way to make money. And then the next scene is when it cuts to his mom crying because his brother Mike, Tom's brother Mike, enlisted in the Marines, and then Mike and Tom got into an argument because Mike heard that Tom was getting into organized crime, and he is disapproving. And then the next scene is in 1920, and then it's like it cuts to a picture saying, owing to prohibition, our entire shop must be sold before midnight. So during this year, the sale of alcohol and consumption was made illegal. So then a part of the organized crime that Tom and Matt get involved with is selling alcohol and then transporting it. And then there's a bunch of shots that show the chaos of people buying alcohol in bulk. They're filling their cars, baby carriages, and then it's like $30 a gallon, they said. So it really shows the chaos at the time. So then Tom and Matt broke into a brewery, and then they had like a gas vehicle, and then they put tubes throughout the thing to transport the alcohol into the gas machine so they could transport it and sell it, and it was like considered bootleg alcohol. The next scene is them buying their clothes. It shows them the wealth going to their head, which a lot of people at the time that were involved in this type of lifestyle had, so I think it was an accurate representation. And then they have a meeting with Patty Ryan where two new characters are introduced. One is Mr. Lehman, and then another is Nails Nathan. Nails Nathan basically is overseeing Matt and Tom, and then he orders them to go into a bar that is purchasing alcohol from someone else. And then Matt and Tom both fight the man because he ended up buying alcohol from someone else because they taste it. So the next scene is at a dinner table with the entire family. Matt, Tom are there, Tom and Mike's mother, and Mike is very tense and calls out Tom for being in this lifestyle, and then throws the keg, which makes their mother very upset. So in the next scene, they meet Gwen Allen. They pick her up and then drop her off, and then she says that she's gonna call Matt, and then Matt actually ends up getting married, and then the next scene is them getting married. And then it's a big celebration, but then they see Putty Nose, which is not a character they wanted to see. So then Tom and Matt both find Putty Nose and confront him about his friend dying and how he said that he was going to defend them, but he didn't. And then they end up killing him in his own house by shooting him. So then Tom and Mammy, which is Tom's wife, were having a more personal moment. And then Matt walked in and tells Tom that Nails Nathan was found dead from his horse. So it cuts to an ad of Nails Nathan being found dead in the newspaper, and then how it says that Paddy Ryan's mob was being weakened. So then the next scene is when Paddy and them are going into hiding because they're looked at as weak now, so they are easy targets. So then at the night, a coal truck is dumping coal outside of them. They think it's gunshots, but then they're like, oh, it's nothing. So then they go to sleep easily. And then the next scene is when Tom was extremely drunk and he was in his room going to sleep. And then Paddy Ryan's girl ended up taking advantage of Tom. So then when he wakes up, he realizes what happened. And then Matt follows him out because that's his best friend. And then a coal truck once again is providing a distraction, and then they're like, oh, it's just the coal truck, and then someone actually does end up shooting and killing Matt, which is very unfortunate. So then because of this, Tom wants revenge, so he goes and buys a .38 caliber, and then he goes into the store for the people that killed him. He shoots it up, and then he ends up getting shot himself. So then he ends brought to the emergency room where he's in critical condition. His mom and Mike end up visiting, and his mom is happy because the family can get back together. And then the next scene is Mike and his mother at their house, and then Paddy shows up to inform them that Tom had been abducted, and that he would be returned, and then Paddy would leave town if he's dropped off, which he is dropped off, but he is dead. So that's the end of the movie. But right before the entire movie ends, it ends up by saying, the end of Tom Powers is the end of every hoodlum. The public enemy is not a man, nor is it a character. It is a problem that sooner or later we, the public, must solve. So I thought this was really interesting that they chose to put a note at the beginning and the end, just to show that there is a lot of controversy around this film. And then some cinematography shots that I saw in the movie. What's in the bird's eye view at the beginning, and then another really complex shot that I saw them trying out was when they put the bush and then Tom's mom in the back, and it showed her crying, so the bush kind of blurred out the front, so it brought more focus to to his mom to show the intense emotion. And then also this is an early audio film, so the audio is a little rusty in some parts, a little quieter and then louder. And then I noticed that they were especially using sound effects like the punches and then the explosions. The explosions definitely sounded better than the punches in my opinion, but it was new. And then also another sound effect they were trying was the baby crying in the background while Tom was walking off. Overall, I really liked this movie. I thought it was really good for 1931, but I was a little uncomfortable at some points just with the racial comments that they had, the racial slurs. And then when Mammy was making comments about how she made it herself and she's white, obviously society has come a long way since then, so it would have been accessible at the time, but it definitely is not now.